We have conference championship weekend coming up, and I thought, what a better way to just start it off. Start predictions from, Friday's games all the way to the last one in the ACC with Florida State and Louisville on Saturday night. As I kind of mentioned in the Pac-12 preview, where this game has a lot of, this is the biggest game. I think this game has the most importance out of conference championship weekend. And the reason why is because I could see a scenario where both teams get in. Seriously, if Alabama wins, I could see a scenario where, win or lose, Georgia gets in. I will say, Georgia and Alabama, as we move with conference realignment and all that stuff, they got to meet in the regular season. They seriously do. It's the home and home series needs to happen. I don't know who needs to hear that or how that needs to get done. Alabama and Georgia cannot play only once a year. They need to play more than once a year. Truthfully, a lot of people would look at it, this is the national championship. If you look at it, there's just so much history in this game. I mean, you got the national championships, you got the SEC meetups, just there's a lot riding on this game. The last meeting was the national championship, Keely Ringo called game, sent it to the house on a pick six. I think there's a lot of revenge in sight for Alabama, and there's a lot of, okay, we got to get these boys. And it's a totally different Bulldogs team too. Like Stetson Bennett's not there anymore. It's a whole new offense. Cook went to the NFL. Bowers is still there, McConkey's still there, but some of those key wide receivers that were in that run have been traded. No, they entered the transfer portal. They're also missing a lot of key defensive players that got drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles. So, I mean, it's two different squads this time around, but the impact is still the same. I've watched a lot of Georgia games this year. I've watched almost all of the Alabama games, and so it's like, yes, I was there when they barely beat South Florida. Milroe got benched and people were like, oh, this guy sucks. But then mysteriously 6-7 weeks later, after he has, a 4 or 5 touchdown performance, it's like, okay, wait a minute, this guy's good. Alabama's figured it out. And it's like, Alabama always had it figured out. They just needed to work out the kinks. And it's like, yeah, they got beat by Texas in week 2. But that's because Quinn Ewers is a dude, and Texas has had a phenomenal season. Now, I will say the committee has shown kind of their hand where, they have not moved from the 8th spot. And I'm not trying to vouch for Alabama and say, oh, they've got to get in. But they've done this to themselves where if Alabama wins, they got to be in. Because if Alabama wins, but we keep Alabama out and we drop Georgia out, that's a college playoff without an SEC team. Are you kidding me? The committee would be idiots to not have that. Like, I think, oh my gosh, the uproar that would have if there is no SEC team in the college playoff. They've run themselves into a unique situation because if there's a 12-1 Alabama team that's an SEC champion, they got to get in. They just have to. But all of that's going to be wiped away and nobody's going to worry about it if Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs show up and they move to 13-0 and they would stay at the number 1 seed. There wouldn't be any debate on, should we move Michigan to 1? Should we move Washington up to 1 after beating Oregon? There would be no debate on it. Georgia would be the number 1 team. Here comes the moment of truth, though. Who do I think is going to win? I got to roll with Alabama. So back when they met in the 2021 SEC Championship, I was rolling with Alabama. They beat up on Stetson Bennett and the boys, and they just walked all over them. But then they had a rematch, and then they met in the national championship, and I was like, I cannot bet against Nick Saban. Yes, they're meeting again, and there's that stat of teams that meet twice in the same season, the outcome is the same, and it's especially different the third time around because we've seen it happen in other sports leagues like the NBA, NHL, NFL, where by the third time that team meets them, usually it goes the opposite way. Well, that happened. They met in the national championship. Georgia won. In this scenario, Carson Beck is not what Stetson Bennett is. That Georgia defense, while being one of the best in the league, they're not the Georgia defense of old. They're missing a lot of those key pieces that went off to the NFL. This is going to be a chess match between Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. And I think whichever quarterback plays better, and personally I think Milroe is a better quarterback, that is who's going to win. This is, yes, going to turn into a defensive game, but then at the end of the day, it's going to have to be the quarterback who can get the first down. Who's going to be the quarterback like how Jalen Hurts was a few years ago against Georgia when Tua went down? Who's going to be the quarterback that gets that game-winning drive? And it's that simple. So I'm going to roll with Alabama, 24-21. If it's not a close game, usually the games are a blowout. And if it's going to be a blowout, give me Alabama 35-10. 23, 24, because when they are close, these games are close. But when they are not close, they are blowouts. I don't bet against Nick Saban ever, even when they are the underdogs in this game against the number one team. And rankings aside, I don't think rankings matter. It's Georgia versus Alabama. It's going to be a good game. And so I think if Alabama wins, I think they could get the number 3 spot at the highest. But again, with how this plays out, and personally how I see it right now, with my prediction of Alabama winning, I would say that Alabama jumps to number 3, and Georgia falls from number 1 to number 4. And the reason why I say that is because things will work itself out, where teams will win and teams will lose, and they'll find a way where it will just work itself out. But I don't think a team that set the record for most consecutive wins in a row, Georgia with 29, and with their ranked wins, and with how they've been sitting on the top of the rankings at number 1, and they've been the number 1 team all year. They've had an undefeated season. I don't think that you can take a team who is back-to-back national champions, and with one loss against Alabama, whether close or spread, in this SEC championship game, I don't see how the committee could take a 1 seed and just not invite them at all, and have them be the 5th seed, and then have, Florida State be in over them with a backup quarterback. Have a debate if Ohio State can jump in and take their spot. No, the debate is over. Like, win or loss, Georgia's going in. Now the question is, can they beat Alabama and keep Alabama out? But the committee has only backed themselves into this corner, and they got to figure it out, and the game's got to be played. So we'll just see. Catch you in the next video. Peace.